And what I realize is that most parents, they don't even realize that the IEP has a transition plan that really is supposed to address adulthood, even though oftentimes it really doesn't. And if it does, it's at a very surface level that's so minuscule that still leaves you well unprepared.
Hey special family, welcome back to another Fair Use Reaction video. If you're new here, I'm AutismMom, and in today's video, we're discussing IEP again. Apparently, there's a blind spot in our IEP. There's a transition plan in there that most parents aren't even aware of. I am most parents because my child is 14. So let's go learn together what this blind spot is, because I'm gonna need to find out. He's 14. Let's take a look.
There's a blind spot that's coming. And parents assume that the school district is going to tell you everything you need to know. They're going to guide you along the way when they hand out that diploma. And that is so far from the truth. And what I realize is that most parents, they don't even realize that the IEP has a transition plan that really is supposed to address adulthood, even though oftentimes it really doesn't. And if it does, it's at a very surface level that's so minuscule that still leaves you well unprepared. And I can also tell you that most parents don't even realize or know what's in their child's transition plan. So those of you guys that have kids that are 14 or over, tell me, what's in your child's transition plan?
Were you guys aware of this transition plan? Because I wasn't aware. So in my next IEP meeting, I need to bring up this transition plan, and I need to figure out what it needs to entail, because my son is going to high school next year. Like, were you guys aware of this? Let's keep watching.
Middle school to high school. What changes in your child's IEP? When your child moves from middle school to high school, their IEP isn't supposed to disappear. But what does change is how it works and what the school is required to plan for. In middle school, most IEPs focus on keeping your child on track academically, with supports like extra time, modified work, or speech and occupational therapy. But in high school, the law adds something new: transition planning. By age 16, federal law under IDEA requires every IEP to include measurable post-secondary goals, things like college readiness, job skills, independent living, and life after graduation. That means your child's IEP should shift from just helping them pass classes to helping them prepare for adulthood. You have the right to ask, what are my child's transition goals? Are there job training or community-based programs in their plan? Are we building skills for independence, not just academics? If those things aren't being discussed yet, it's time to bring them up at your next IEP meeting. High school IEPs should help your child thrive after school, not just survive in it. If your team isn't talking about that transition, it's time to advocate for it. Follow at Ask an Advocate for more tips to help you navigate every stage of your child's IEP journey.
So let's talk transition planning. Transition plans are required to start at age 14. Now, schools are notoriously bad at initiating transition plans or developing robust transition plans unless the parent, caregiver, or advocate pushes them. So I'm going to take a moment. Parents, caregivers, this is me letting you know, transition planning starts at age 14, which means by age 12 and 13, you should be saying those words during IEP meetings and correspondence with the IEP team. I would like to keep XYZ in the forefront of our minds for when we start transition planning. Statements like that. Let them know that you are aware of what your child is entitled to. By age 14, that child should also be in their IEP meeting. By age 14. There are, of course, outliers where that is not necessarily relevant. There are students who it might not be appropriate at age 14 for them to be in the room, but for the vast majority of students, they should be included by age 14. My child, he's 9. He participates in his IEP meetings because it's appropriate for him. It would not be appropriate for us to wait until age 14. Back to transition planning. Transition planning is what we do when we look down the road at what that student's goals are post-education. What is it going to take to get them there? What resources do they need? What supports do they need? What additional education do they need in terms of life skills, coping skills, job skills? Do they need career training? There's all sorts of things that when you start to talk about transition plans that come into play with the IEP that we didn't think about when they were in 3rd or 4th grade. Transition planning is also something that all students with IEPs are entitled to, regardless of support need. So again, you might have a student with really high support needs that is going to need residential placement post-education, or they can live independently, but they're going to require a lot of professional supports. And you can have students with lower support needs who just need a lot of skill building during their teen years to be able to make that process smooth and painless as they transition into adulthood. Both students are entitled to that transition plan. It's going to look different. The goals are going to be different. The parent involvement is going to be different. The outside services are going to be different. But they're both entitled to that robust transition planning that gets them to their goal post-education. The reason we start at 14 is because of the difficulty of receiving adult services. Youth services aren't easy to obtain, right? Adult services are even harder. There's a bureaucracy issue, there's a staff issue, there's a funding issue, there's an access issue. Establishing services is hard. So we start at 14 so that we have time. We have time for things to fail and time to find new ways of doing things and time to find every opportunity available to help our children reach their full potential.
The purpose of today's meeting is all about discussing Mia's plan for post-high school. We've researched a lot of vocational training programs for students with special needs that we'd like to discuss today. I appreciate that, but Mia has expressed a lot of interest in going to community college. Are we exploring post-secondary options for her? Given Mia's challenges, we felt that vocational training would be more appropriate for her. Mia deserves an opportunity to explore every option, including higher education. Transition planning should reflect her strengths and her interests. Yes, it does take Mia a little bit longer than others to grasp information, but she's really academically driven. I think our focus should be how we can support her in a community college secondary education environment. So we'll need some time to do some research and come back to this conversation. Thank you. Let's plan another meeting soon. Mia's transition plan should echo her dreams. I'll be researching programs in the meantime, and I hope you'll support me in this endeavor.
So apparently, transition planning should reflect your child's interests and their strength. Like, seriously, I'm learning so much. What's next? I need to know more. Okay, once we figure out maybe my child wants to go to higher education or maybe a vocational school, okay, then I tell them this and me and the teacher come together and make a plan on that. I'm trying to figure this out. Let's watch some more.
Let's talk about transition assessment. Special educators use transition assessment to identify the student's SPINs, strengths, preferences, interests, and needs that will help them develop post-secondary goals in the areas of employment, education and training, and independent living if needed. Transition assessment is a process of identifying what we already know about the student, what we need to know about the student, collecting that data, analyzing that data, and then repeating the process at least annually. Transition assessment should be individualized for each student, so that means a school should not only use a parent and/or student survey. If everyone is receiving the same survey, how is that individualized? It's not. A transition assessment battery should consist of formal and informal assessments that help the student identify their SPINs and their post-secondary goals. Transition assessment helps the educators determine the transition services the student needs, including what they need to learn in order to have the best chance of achieving their post-secondary goals in the future. So tell me, what has been your experience with transition assessment? As an educator, are you using multiple assessments that are individualized to your students? As a student or a family member, do you know if the educators are using multiple assessments? Are the educators sharing their findings from the transition assessment with you?
From IEP to 504 plan, what happens after high school? Did you know your child's IEP ends when they graduate high school, but their rights don't? Let's talk about what happens next. The IEP is part of a federal law called IDEA, and that law only covers public K-12 schools. Once your child leaves high school, whether it's college, trade school, or job training, IDEA no longer applies, but Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act does. That means your young adult can still get accommodations, just under a 504 plan, not an IEP. The difference is, in college or training programs, they have to request those accommodations themselves. The school won't automatically know or reach out like in K-12. Examples of common 504 accommodations in college: extra time on tests or quiet testing rooms, priority class registration, accessible housing or note-taking support. Before graduation, ask your child's IEP team to include transition goals for college or employment. Help gather updated medical and evaluation records. Provide a summary of performance. Colleges often require it to approve accommodations. Your child's IEP may end at graduation, but their right to support doesn't. Teach them how to advocate for themselves now. It's the best graduation gift you can give. Follow at Ask an Advocate for more IEP and transition rights every parent should know.
Hi, Miss Jackson. I've been discussing with my son about his options after high school. I know he's only 16, but we both feel like he's not really ready for the upcoming transition to adult life, and his IEP really doesn't adequately cover this topic. Transition planning is an important part of an IEP, but he's only 16. Right now, we should focus on his academic needs. We can worry about the rest later. I understand that, but he's feeling really anxious and unprepared about his future. I know he's missing some skills that will be necessary for success in life after high school, and I don't want to wait until it's too late. We need to start planning now. Okay, well, what do you suggest? I'd like to see more meaningful services added to his transition plan, like career counseling, job training, and even some life skills training.
For students on an IEP, when does the bulk of transition planning happen? Well, during high school years, of course. I'm Quinn Perkins, and I am a special education advocate. Transition planning, this will be part 1. So first, identify useful community support services and programs like vocational rehabilitation, your county services, centers for independent living. 2, explore recreation, community, leisure activities. 3, match career interests and skills with vocational classes and work experiences. 4, ensure that you have copies of related documents, social security cards, birth certificates, state IDs. Next, consider summer employment or volunteer experiences. Finally, learn and practice appropriate personal, interpersonal communication and social skills for different settings. For example, like employment, inside the school, what would you say on the ball field, with friends. Transition planning during high school, part 2. If you missed part 1, I just go back a video or 2 and you'll be able to pick it up. I'm Quinn Perkins and I am a special education advocate. So start gathering information on post-secondary programs and the support services offered. Post-secondary is a fancy name for education after high school. And I plan to do another video on post-secondary programming, so hopefully the algorithm will bring you back. Determine the need for financial support. That is SSI income, so supplemental security income, state financial supplemental programs, Medicaid, and start getting into those. Learn and practice appropriate interpersonal communication and social skills for different settings. I know I talked about that in the last video. So important. Takes us a long time to learn those skills. Explore all the legal things like guardianship, supported decision-making, special needs trust, ABLE accounts, and whatever it is in your state. If your child is not already practicing independent living skills like budgeting, shopping, cooking, and housekeeping, start doing that. Identify personal assistance or supports if appropriate, and start to learn how to direct and manage these services. Transition planning, part 3. This one's a little bit different because these are the things that you should be doing just that 1 year prior to graduation or aging out during that type of senior year or that age 21, 22, unless you're in Michigan, 27. I'm Quinn Perkins and I am a special education advocate, and I do know a bit about transition planning. So let's go. There's a whole list of this stuff. Start applying for financial aid programs. That's your SSI, your vocational rehabilitation if you're not there already, personal assistance services, anything with the state. Keep practicing effective communication, interview skills, asking for help, identifying accommodations. Start a driver's training program to get a license if possible. If not, develop a transportation or mobility plan. Specify desired jobs and obtain a paid employment, even with support as needed. Consider supported decision-making and or guardianship. You never know which one you might need. Develop and update any employment plans. Investigate and apply for post-school opportunities. So again, that's anything after high school. This could be military, college, vocational training, but within those, arrange for your accommodations. Develop a resume. Transfer responsibility, such as arriving on time to work or school appointments, and social activities. Those need to go to the student. Start transferring responsibility for healthcare needs, making appointments, filling out papers, getting those prescriptions refilled. Register to vote if that's appropriate. Male students, you need to register for the draft. Sorry, no exceptions. And review your healthcare insurance, your coverage, just to make sure that you don't have any other documentation that you need to put in place, like a rider policy or anything like that.
So the transition planning is going to discuss your child's future post-high school and what their interest, their strength is, and together with the parents, the teacher and the parent will work together and formulate a plan for your child's future or what they wanted to do in life. This is amazing. We learn together as we go each and every day. And if you have done transition planning already, can you drop something in the comment section below for us parents? Thank you. Catch you in the next video. Bye.